Hello, fellow Movie Crusaders, and welcome to our latest episode of the Weekly Crusaders. My name's Sean Waskirk. With me, as always, is Brian Michaels. Video 501. We've done, well, we haven't, but the channel has had 500 videos on us. I honestly, if you would have asked me back in 2018, even though Brian didn't really know me then, if I would have had 500 videos on this channel, I'd be like, that's a good goal. Probably never gonna happen. That's a good goal, but here we are. We're still going strong.
And if you take out that Terminator reaction, we have about 700 views.
That's not true. That's not true. We still to this day don't know why so many people watch Terminator Dark Fate spoiler review. I don't know. It is a mystery that will never get answered. And we've watched that thing like a fine-tooth comb to make sure we didn't say something just really bad. And that's why people are checking out. We still don't know why people watch that, but people still, every time I go and check, people are still watching that video, and I have no idea why. But anyway, we are talking about two movies that came out during the week of August 13th through August 19th. Like I said on last week's episode, these are two movies I love. Hands down, one of my favorite sports films of all time, and then also one of my favorite comedies of all time. Both these just bring me so much joy, and I'm glad that Brian picked one of them, so I didn't have to do like a Sophie's Choice and decide which one to pick between the other. But we are going to start with my film first. This is a film, like I said, I remember going into this with little to no expectations. But ended up becoming one of my favorite comedies ever, to the point where I still laugh my ass off to this day. And that is the 2007 comedy film Superbad. Superbad came out August 17, 2007, had a budget of $20 million, had a weekend opening of $33.05 million. It was number one its opening weekend, spent 2 weeks at the number one spot, and had a finished box office of $170.81 million, $121.46 million domestic, and $49.35 million international. Yeah, for me, and I think this is with a lot of people, I think for a lot of comedies, I mean, even the ones that you love, you watch them so many times. After a while, you watch them, but you're not really laughing out loud anymore. You just watch them because you enjoy them, but you're not like, you might scoff or something. Like, do you still laugh out loud super hard when you've watched a favorite comedy of yours like the 40th time or something?
Rarely,
exactly.
I still enjoy it, but I don't like that burst out loud laughing.
Well, yeah, you're just watching it as like a fun, like, I love this movie, and then you smile through it, but you're not like, oh my god. Like, I still laugh my ass off watching Superbad because there's just so many great lines and great jokes in this film. But like I said, this was a movie that I wasn't really excited for when it came out, because Jonah Hill at this time, I only knew Jonah Hill as the weird-looking eBay kid from the 40-Year-Old Virgin. And then also, what was it, Accepted? Which
I didn't remember from that. I knew him from Accepted, and then he has a small part in Knocked Up with like the usual group of guys. Yeah.
See, I barely remember him in Knocked Up. I think I've only watched Knocked Up like the one time.
Mm-hmm.
I was just like, everyone's like, oh my god. I was like, it's okay. It's not great, you know. And then Michael Cera, like,
this is his first major movie role. He had bit parts in like nothing movies.
Well, and you had
Arrested. This and Juno came out the same year.
Yeah, and you had Arrested Development. But I mean, I was not a
big fan of that.
I like Arrested Development, but I got into Arrested Development like after it was already done. Like, it was one of those things where it was like, oh, I love Jason Bateman. Oh, Michael Cera from Scott Pilgrim, he's in this. Oh, Will Arnett, I'm going to check this out. And then that's how I fell in love with Arrested Development. It was not when it was on TV. So the biggest grab for me in this movie was Seth Rogen, because he was the only, because Bill Hader was like, unless you watched SNL, Bill Hader wasn't a name yet. Emma Stone was a nobody in this movie. So literally, and Christopher Mintz-Plasse was a nobody in this film as well. So literally, Seth Rogen was the name.
Oh, and they marketed it that way too.
Oh, exactly. But I mean, it's if you've seen the premise of this movie, this is a movie that's been done over and over and over again. This is not something new. This is not, they've been doing these comedies since the fucking 80s, maybe even the 70s. If I'm not blanking off on a name of a 70s comedy that's doing like a Porky's, but that's 80s. But it's more the chemistry between the cast, between Jonah Hill, Michael Cera, Christopher Mintz-Plasse, and everyone else, and just the jokes and just the comedic timing of so much of this film. And it's just some of the jokes that I just was not expecting, which I'll hold off on because I want Brian to get his stuff in before I say too much. But yeah, Superbad is a movie that I still just bust a gut laughing. I was losing it the other night when I was watching this, and I was just like, I had to pause it because of just so many certain scenes. And a lot of it is like I said, these two guys, Jonah Hill and Michael Cera, with Michael Cera's like soft, like trail off delivery of lines, and then Jonah Hill's just loud, brash, like perfect melding all the way through this. Go ahead and do your opinion of Superbad. I know you're a fan of it. You're probably not as big of a fan as I am of it, but I know you at least like this movie.
I don't know, because I mean, like you said, when this came out, they were essentially nobodies, or maybe you recognized them, but they weren't stars, except for like the Seth Rogans, the Bill Haders, things like that. I had seen the trailers, which it looked funny, but then I remember they had like a couple weeks in advance, they did like an advanced screening of it, like nationally, not like a little local thing, but national advanced screenings. Which, like for instance, tonight I went and saw an advanced screening of Strays,
which we'll get his opinion on that at the end of the episode.
Yeah, there's like 10 people in the theater. Let's just say it's pretty quiet in there. When I saw the advanced screen of this, it was pretty much packed because I guess everybody was curious about this movie, and everybody was laughing their asses off. I mean, this is a movie that is totally a crowd pleaser. It's hilarious pretty much from beginning to end, and I mean, too many movies nowadays try to get so serious, and it's really kind of the Apatow effect, where everything has to turn into a drama towards the end. And this one maybe has some sort of dramatic moments to it, but even then, it's totally comedic, like beginning to end. Yeah. And a large part of that is the chemistry between the three, like you said, the dialogue, which in this one you can tell, especially with Jonah Hill, there is some of that stuff that you can tell is probably improvised, but they don't overdo it like they do in a lot of those Apatow movies, where it's just like they just go off for 5 minutes on improv, and it's like, okay, we get it, move on. But yeah, I mean, the entire cast, top to bottom, there's not a weak link in it. I think everybody's great in it. And it was just an unexpected surprise when it came out, because it's like you don't see a lot of great comedies anymore. I mean, they come along once in a while, but then for one to come along starring people you don't know, you knew nothing about it, and it's great. And I've watched it numerous times since then, and I still love it.
And I honestly, I will say, and I'm not saying that this is that they couldn't come up with their own idea or anything, because it's still unique enough for what it is. Without Superbad, I don't think Booksmart would have been a thing. Because if you watch Booksmart and you watch this, granted, the girls are not trying to get laid in this movie, but it's, it follows almost the same tread.
It's very much a female Superbad. Now they build on that and do something different with it, but it definitely built on Superbad.
But I literally think Olivia Wilde one night was probably just watching Superbad with her then husband, Jason Sudeikis, and they were laughing their ass off. She's like, I can do something like this. I was like, I'm not going to make it super, super raunchy, but I can make this work. And she did. And that's why we got Booksmart, which was another great teen comedy. But with this, I mean, here's the funny thing is I didn't realize how much I loved Evan Goldberg. There's so much. He's like, him and Seth Rogen, when they're writing together, they're like Lord and Miller. It's like, you don't realize how much shit they've done. But then when you go back and look at their stuff, you're like, I've loved so much of their shit. And it's just like, you almost need to start paying attention. Like, not necessarily them directing, just them writing. Because if they write together, more times than not every time, but more times than not, I'm loving what they're doing. And what I also loved about this, too, is that Seth Rogen is the name, but he looks like a baby in this. I don't know if it's like the mutton chops or whatever, but he looks like he's like 22 in this movie. He really, especially next to Bill Hader, who doesn't look old. But it's just the way they portray themselves in the movie. Like Seth Rogen looks like he's a nobody in this movie too. But I love the bromance between Evan and
Seth.
What?
Seth.
I was gonna say Sam. I was like, that's not right. Evan and Seth. I love them so much. I see a lot of me and my best friend Ryan in this. There's so many conversations that they have that I feel like I've had in some capacity, with Ryan. And
which porn site are you going to subscribe to?
No comment. Not necessarily that, but situations like that. But yeah, it's just there's so many just funny moments, or like And I love how like they just grab random people from the high school. You know, it's like when uh God damn, Michael Cera. I'm blanking on. I'm crossing their names off. Evan. When Evan has to go to his counselor, he's like, "What are you supposed to do? Sit here like eat dessert alone like this kid?" And they just go and show that kid real quick. And it's just like it's a random little side joke, but it works. I love the brief little. Granted, once again, he was a nobody. The brief little like Dave Franco cameo. I've quoted that so many times. Dude, that was like 8 years. People don't forget. It's just it's something like that. And then of course,
The
one
Asian
of the
kid
things,
who's his partner in anyway.
oh yes, yes, I you know, and like I love like the one part when I was watching this the first time, when I knew I was going to love this movie, is because like you're watching it and you're laughing, you're like, okay, yeah, funny, funny, funny. But it's when Jonah Hill goes back and does the flashback to why he hates Becca when he's a kid. And you just start to see the drawings, and I just die on every drawing. The monkey one kills me every time.
And then when they start showing even more of them over the closing credits.
Oh, it's so good. That's when I knew that this movie was for me. Because
apparently it was I believe I think it was Evan Goldberg's brother. I think drew all those. It was somebody's brother.
So
I think it was
good.
his brother. Who
It's
like
so
basically he
good.
said, "Hey, will you do this for me?" And he just like went off and came back the next day with like just piles of shit.
It's so damn good. I wish, and I haven't looked, but I wouldn't be surprised if on the DVD or the Blu-ray there is a like Easter egg thing where it's just all the pictures.
A gallery, yeah,
Like
I wouldn't know.
yes, like a gallery of it. And you know what? Would not look at it because they're hilarious. Just the different things about it. But I enjoy that because I'm not trying. I'm not. Brian and I are really adamant. It's like when we talk about comics, we don't want to just quote just endlessly because that's not talking about the movie. That's just quoting things and laughing stupidly. But I love the little journey they go on. Once again, very similar to Booksmart, but you've got these two characters. One, they're both very brash, but Sarah's a little more quieter about it. And there's so many times where he's obviously trying to move forward with his life, but Jonah Hill's character's so brash and he's just happy living life the way he is, and he doesn't want things to change, which happens when you go from high school to college. And this one night they both have these goals they set out to do, and shit happens. The party that they end up going to is great. It's great. There's so many beautiful little nuggets. Jimmy's brother thing, the dance. It's great. I love it so damn much. And I also love the physical comedy of how many times Jonah Hill gets hurt in this movie and how he doesn't actually get hurt ever. Like, dude got hit by a car like 2 or 3 times this movie. Like, there's the one part where he gets hit with a baseball bat. He just gets up and keeps running. Like, even the part where Michael Cera runs away, just the way Michael runs, it's great. Like, everything about this thing works. And I remember like the first time I watched it, I felt like Bill Hader and Seth were too much in it, but I have grown to just love the shit out of those characters. Probably because I'm older now than what I was when I first saw it. Because I was like, oh my god, the cops are doing too much.
Well, here's the thing: is I agree with you. The first time I saw it, I was kind of like, okay, they're kind of overdoing a little bit. But then, honestly, if you think about it, when you watch it a second time and you've seen the whole movie and you know that they've known all along and they're just kind of fucking with Christopher Mintz-Plasse, it's like it makes sense now.
Well, yeah, that, and I think it's because I really didn't know Bill Hader that much then. Like, I knew the only thing I knew Bill Hader from was I watched SNL, but I wasn't like an every week kind of person. The only thing I knew Bill Hader from was like the Night at the Museum movies, and I fucking hated the one movie he was in, and I hated it because I could tell that he was still reading off a poster board because he's so used to that from SNL. I was like, this guy's a horrible fucking actor. And this is the first time I actually watched him and was like, okay, he can actually do some acting. And then of course Bill Hader, I love Bill Hader now, he's great. But like I just like he was overdoing it, and like Seth Rogen was doing Seth Rogen, and then Bill Hader was just like trying to overdo it. But now you watch it, and there's just so many of these great little moments, and like I said, these little character mates. Like Emma Stone, she's probably the one that gets the least to do in this, but because she's a nobody in this movie, but she's great in it. It's like you see where it's like this is like a can't hardly wait moment where you watch a lot of these people can't hardly wait. You're like, they didn't really do much in this movie, but it's nice to see where they first really started.
But yeah, and it really kind of, I mean, even though she didn't have a big part in it, it was kind of her breakout movie.
Yeah.
You know, and people took notice of her, and then she got parts in, you know, things like Zombieland and Easy A, and then she became a huge star.
Yeah, so it's nice to see her and stuff like that. And the one person I've watched this twice in the last year. Every time I watch this, I always go up and look up Becca because I'm like, how have I not seen her in other things?
She hasn't really done much of anything. I looked her up not too long ago. Yeah,
well, she's a Canadian actress, so she doesn't really just branch out a lot. But I like her in this movie. I love her chemistry with Michael Cera in this movie. The hallway scene, where that's all I'm gonna say. Just the reaction to that whole great moment was great. I love, like I said, the cops. Once you actually know that they're in on it the whole time, and you're watching, they just want to have a fun night and not have to worry about it. But they have so many great little. There's so many lines of dialogue that if you aren't paying attention, or if you're laughing too hard at the previous joke, you're missing 3 more jokes. And it's when you watch it multiple times that you start to spot those jokes because you can hear them because you're not laughing as hard. You're still enjoying the movie, but you're starting to pick up on the jokes that you didn't catch the last 2 or 3 times you watched it, and then you're laughing at those new jokes. I have so much fun watching these movies, and I really wish. It's not that I don't want a sequel, but I kind of want Jonah Hill and Michael Cera to do something again.
It'd be cool if they did like kind of like the I like Fish Called Wanda and Fierce Creatures. I'm sure there are other examples too, where like basically the same cast get together, but it's a completely different movie. It's not.
Yeah, but because they're all older now. Give me something. Yeah. Give me a comedy with them being older, kind of almost like a game night situation where they're older people. They're just hanging out. They're doing stuff, or like Indian Summer, which is a movie that you got me to watch a couple years back. Give me these people in a different setting, obviously with their ages the way they are now.
Give us this. Or do a sequel, make it like super bad, like their 20s high school reunion, and
you could do it. I mean, give it 4 more years, we're there.
Yeah,
you know, I mean, I'm for, like, I even like, there's just so much great dialogue in this film that I just go back and rewatch, to the conversation on the soccer field, to even when he's talking about to his home ec teacher. There's so many just great, like, I'm a single mother.
Honestly, I don't know if there's a weak scene in this movie. If you asked me to pick out the weakest scene in the movie, I'm not sure I could pick it out, honestly.
Yeah, everything is just top tier the whole way through, and I love these actors together, and I also love in like a past kind of thing is that Jonah Hill literally makes a Jump Street joke, and then he ended up doing 21 Jump Street. Love that they made that joke with him not even knowing he was going to do that, but. Yeah, and I also love that this also did the one thing that they never do anymore. This had its own movie song in the credits. Because when it's showing all the pictures, it's a super bad song because it keeps talking about making love and all that. So it goes back and does that thing that we love, that we talked about like in the 80s and 90s, where it had its own personal song. I also kind of love how it ended, where it was just like they go their separate ways, but they're not really going their separate ways. But even then, they're like, I'll call you later. I have your information. Like, it's like just they're funny. They're funny back and forth, which is I get why throughout the movie everyone's like, what are you guys gonna do without each other? It's like, we're not codependent, man. It's like, we can do this shit, but you do realize how much that they actually do love each other as bros. But I mean, maybe Jonah Hill's real quick. He could go.
They did spend the whole scene confessing their love. Like
they did. But it's one of those things, like it's a bro love.
I know.
And even Vince Plotz, who's if there's a weak person in it, it's him, because he's not a great actor, but he has Hader and Seth with him that brings out.
Yeah, well, honestly, I think that he was kind of the standout person. This, like, I mean, obviously the other two were great in it, and it kind of boosted their careers. But Christopher Mintz-Plasse is the one who, like, people like had seen him nowhere.
Well, it's because
this is nobody, and he's like basically the third star of this movie, and he was really quite hilarious. I mean, you couldn't go anywhere without people like quoting McLovin and have McLovin T-shirts and all kinds of things like this, and it was, and so he had a big breakout. The only problem is he largely kind of tried to play that same character for the next 10 years. I mean, there was some where he was actually a little more mature and things like that. I did like him in things like Fright Night,
And
things like that.
even the first Kick-Ass.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, like in the Kick-Ass movies, I actually like him in both Kick-Ass movies. But I just think that he was not able to quite solidify his career as much as some other people. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Jonah Hill is obviously Jonah Hill and Emma Stone are definitely the two that have really. I mean, if we're talking about the kids, we're not talking about Hader and Seth.
Right.
Those are definitely the two that have actually gotten the most branched out with award recognition and doing serious films and all that kind of stuff. Michael Cera is still very well liked. Yeah, I mean, come on, dude, Scott Pilgrim. We love Scott. Brian and I were talking about for the show. They dropped the Scott Pilgrim animated trailer today on Netflix, and Brian and I both were just excited as fuck for that. We cannot wait to watch that. But Michael Cera, for me, he's this character. And then he's Scott Pilgrim, and I will watch him in almost anything because of those two roles. And I love this movie so much. It's so damn funny. And like I said, I don't want to quote stuff because for anyone who hasn't seen this, who hasn't seen Superbad, but there's people who will look at this cast and they'll go, that's not for me, or they don't like the super raunchy comedies, which you're listening to the wrong two people. Definitely. That maybe have not given Superbad a fair shake. And if you guys haven't, you guys definitely should check out Superbad because it is, like I said, it's gut busting good time. Especially if you like high school comedies. I mean, this one's a hard R, which it means a hard R. Is there any nudity in this film? I can't think there's any nudity in this film.
I don't think there's an actual nudity now,
except for maybe when they watch porn. But even then, it's like
I don't even think you see anything there.
I don't think you see anything either. Now there's drawings. There's definite drawings.
There's drawings. There's Evan's mom's cleavage, things like that. But
I mean, yeah, but I mean, so's oh god, what's her name? The redhead that McLovin's all about.
Oh, man.
I told her what time it is. but yeah, it's one of those that's like obviously it's for the cussing, it's for the dialogue and everything like that, but it is great. It's endlessly quotable. And it's something that you can really watch and enjoy all the way through. Like I said, now I got to pay more attention to when Evan Goldberg and Seth Rogen rise up, which I mean, they just did Turtles, which I loved. But I got to start almost go back and what have they done that I missed or loved but didn't realize it was them? Because there's so much that they've done lately that I've just for the most part enjoyed. And Superbad probably is right up there as one of my favorite things. Like I said, endlessly funny. I watched it on my digital copy. Is it on anything right now?
No, right now it'd be a rental or purchase. It's not on any of the streaming services right now.
Which it's well worth the rental. It's well worth the buy because, like I said, endlessly rewatchable. And I dare anyone to watch the flashback scenes and the end credits and not laugh once. If you don't at least chuckle once in either of those scenes, I don't know what's wrong with you. You have no sense of humor because the creativity of these drawings are to die for in every way imaginable. Anything else you'd like to add before we jump to your movie?
Nope.
All right, we're going to switch over to Brian's movie now. Like I said, one of my favorite sports films ever. But luckily Brian picked it, so I didn't have to decide between this and Superbad. We are talking about the 1996 golf film Tin Cup. Tin Cup came out August 16th, 1996, had a budget of $45 million, had a weekend opening of $10.13 million. It was number one its opening weekend, its only week at the number one spot. Had a finished box office of $53.85 million. It was only released domestically, not international, which is a crime. But anyway, Brian, take it away. This is your movie. I feel like I've been talking too much.
Yeah, no. So Tin Cup, basically the story of what's the actual name? Roy Tin Cup McAvoy.
Roy McAvoy.
Yeah, he's a basically a washed up golfer who now runs his driving range. Kind of lives in his trailer kind of thing. He's just the kind of person who's always gotten in his own way. He has this taste of success, but he manages to screw it up no matter what happens. The poster for it, the cover art would lead you to believe it's like a rom-com. There is a romance subplot to the movie, but it's really about him. It's about the golfing. It's about this whole event here. The one thing I think this movie had going for it is directed by Ron Shelton, who is the king of sports movies, especially sports comedies. This is the guy who did Bull Durham, the guy who did White Men Can't Jump, the guy who did Play It to the Bone, and then Tin Cup. And out of all those, I mean, I love all those movies. Tin Cup might be my favorite. White Man Can't Jump's up there. But I enjoy all those movies. We've talked about at least 2 of those other ones in addition to this one.
We definitely talk about Play It to the Bone and Tin Cup. I
thought we did White Man Can't Jump at some point.
White Man Can't Jump we talked about,
Yeah.
and Play It to the Bone.
So this is his 4th movie we're talking about on here.
Yeah,
so
I don't think we talked about Bull Durham.
We have not talked about Bull Durham, no. So I'm sorry, that's 3. I can count. Really, I can. But
I'm literally double checking his directing to make sure there's not anything else we talked about.
So it's Kevin Costner reteaming with Ron Shelton in a sports comedy. Besides that, you got Rene Russo, who we always love around here. You got a great supporting cast of kind of those character actors you recognize, but maybe you don't know their names. Cheech Marin is the one who kind of stands out that you do know who he is. And Don Johnson, who I've never been a Don Johnson fan.
But I love him in this movie.
But he's great in this movie, and he shows up in some other things, Django Unchained and some other stuff, and he does a good job. But I was like, I think I was just barely too young to be on the Miami Vice train when it was out. I mean, I saw some episodes of it when it aired, but that was it. And then he tried to be like an action star and a couple of things and never worked out.
Wasn't he also Nash Bridges?
Yeah, I never watched that show though.
I didn't either, but that's what I knew him from.
But this is probably my favorite movie he's in, and he plays his character perfectly because he's got to do this thing where he's kind of an asshole, but he for most of the movie he's not really doing anything wrong, He
just pushes Roy's buttons.
He's pushing. He's being a little condescending to Roy, things like that. But he's not really a bad guy. He's the antagonist, but he's not a bad guy. Although he is mean to kids and dogs. So
and old people.
Yeah. So, but this is a movie that we sound like broken records. We talk about this a lot. Is what makes the comedy work is the chemistry between the people. Because the relationship Roy has with
Romeo's
character. What's that?
Romeo.
With Romeo. The relationship he has with Rene Russo. The relationship that he has with Don Johnson. It's a different dynamic in each relationship, and you kind of see, it just frays him apart even more and more as he has to deal with people. Yeah, I love the scenes where he's dealing with Rene Russo because he's like, he doesn't know because she's a psychiatrist or psychologist. And like she's talking all this stuff, trying to get into his head. He's like, I don't know how this shit works, and it's just a lot of fun. But I've babbled. So before I go any further, your thoughts?
I feel like if I ever had made it as an actor and hit the level of like being like a star of my own movies, I would have done what Kevin Costner did. Is I just would have kept doing sports movies because I love sports and I want to play them. I would have done baseball movies. I would have done football movies. I would have done these movies as well as other things. So it's like I watched Kevin Costner and I'm just like, this is the actor I probably would have been, because I would have totally just kept casting myself in with I would have found a director who likes me, who actually likes shooting sports movies, and I just would have just kept doing that shit. Because you always can tell, because Costner is one of those people you can tell whether he's having a good time or whether he's not having a good time in his movies, much like Harrison Ford, Bruce Willis, whether they're trying or they're not trying. Costner always tries in sports movies, which is why we love his movies. That's why Bull Durham, Field of Dreams, one of my personal favorites is For Love of the Game. I love watching Kevin Costner in sports movies because he makes you feel what he feels throughout the film, which I know that's an actor's job, but Costner's so good at that in these kinds of films. And Roy McAvoy, he's a likable jackass. Like we always talked about how Scott Pilgrim is a piece of shit character. He's an asshole throughout the film. Roy's not a great guy in this. Roy is a prick. Roy's he's a jackass who gets in his own way. His ego.
And he basically drags other people down with him too.
Exactly. He's an anchor. He is definitely an anchor. And when people try to rise him up and try to make him succeed, his ego gets in his own way, and he brings everyone back down with him. Roy is his own antagonist. David Sims is an obstacle, but he's not the bad guy in this movie. The bad guy is Roy. And Roy has to defeat his own inner demons, much like it's said in the film, in order to survive, in order to win in the day. And newsflash, at the end of the day, he doesn't. But he combines with them in a way that gives him the one thing he's always wanted, which is immortality, in showing that he has left a mark, whether it's a good mark or a bad mark. He has left a mark, and at the end of the movie, it's not one of those where it's like, oh, he won the big thing and happy go lucky. It's like, no, he blew it because Roy is his own personal enemy. He did get the girl at the end, but we don't know where he goes from here. He could still just be this driving pro guy who lives in his Winnebago, which I'm pretty sure Rene Russo wouldn't allow that. But we don't know if he ever goes and makes it pro after this. We assume, because he'll have, but once again, he can't get out of his own way.
Well, that's one thing I really loved about this movie is that ending, because, they very easily could have done the cliche thing where this guy, comes from obscurity and then he is a Cinderella story and he comes and he wins the whole thing. But they don't do that. They don't take the expected route, and they take this turn where not only does he lose, but he loses in grand fashion. But the thing is, it still gets to be portrayed as a victory for him because, with this amazing shot, like you said, he makes history. It says, in the hole from across the water. And as I think Rene Russo's character says, like, nobody's going to remember 10 years from now, who won this Open, but they're going to remember that shot. And it's like, I think and then she says, yeah, it was a 12, but it was the greatest 12 of all time. And it's like, I just love that. I love the way that ended.
And I still get, and I also want to acknowledge, I got to pull up the actual cast list because I'm gonna mess it up. I also want to acknowledge the music for this, because, like, yes, they got a good, like, soundtrack through this. I actually enjoyed the music. I wouldn't listen to these songs on my own, but in the world of Tin Cup, I love the music that they choose. But I also love William Ross's score, because during that shot, when he makes that shot, I still get goosebumps watching that scene, because the way the score is and the way it's shot, everything about that, and then his reaction and Renee's action and Romeo's action to it and all this, it's so beautifully, well, it's a beautiful car wreck that you just can't look away. The only person I hated in this movie was the guy in the TV room, the little short
like the producer of the telecast.
Yes, that's the only guy that if I was ever going to take someone out of this movie, it'd be him, because he's just a jackass to be a jackass, and it's like there's no reason to have this guy in the movie, because it's not like it'd be one thing if he was talking shit and then Roy eventually met that guy. But it's not. He's just a guy who wants to talk shit just to talk shit. And he's just there, and there's no need for him in this. He's just a troll through this whole movie, which in 1996 was, way ahead of its time. But still,
they also padded the cast with a lot of actual golfers, not playing themselves, but they gave them different names.
No, some of them were playing. Some of
them, but a lot of them they gave other names to, though.
Phil Mickelson's like a kid in this movie.
But it's like, but there's a lot of golfers, and you can tell which one's the golfers because they aren't good actors. But it wasn't enough that it ruined the movie or anything.
No, I love Kevin Costner in this movie. It's probably one of my favorite performances of his, hands down. I know it's not the one that gets the most recognition, but it's probably one of my favorite performances. Same thing with Rene Russo. It's definitely my favorite Cheech performance. I also love his group of guys, like his buddies. I never know the actor's name. The actual actor is I gotta pull up I pulled it up real quick, so I was like, I'm actually gonna acknowledge him in this. George Perez, who plays Jose. He's always the guy who's like, he's really good at cheering on and screaming loudly, because he's the long-haired guy with the little mustache. He's always like, he's the cheerleader of the group, because every time they show him, he's always like it's like, dude, you're so good at that. You're really good at that, man. You are playing your assignment really, really well. But like him and Dennis Berkeley as Earl and Lou Myers as Clint, like I enjoyed them in this movie as well. And you get little moments with them through Romeo and through Roy. And I love the friendships they have through this. And the golfing is fun too. And like I said, David Sims' character, Don Johnson, knows how to play an egotistical prick. But like you said, he's not doing anything. Like, yes, he does fire Roy at that one point, but he did warn Roy. But he's a stick up his own ass. Like, he's super professional. He doesn't like to just play around, have fun. He's not a buddy with the other golfers, but it's not like he's not Shooter McGavin. He's not hiring a guy to fucking run over Happy Gilmore so he wins the U.S. Open. And at the end of the day, I also even kind of loved it to a point where when we get to the end, Roy even goes and going, you're gonna have to actually show some balls if you want to win. And we show that David is not that person.
Yeah.
That he
like when he was caddying for him, he's actually trying to help. He's like, you can make this. I can make this. Come on, just take the shot. He's like, no, I got to play it safe.
Yeah, and it's even at that moment where he knows if he wants to win this U.S. Open, he has to go for it. And he still can never go for it. And it's like, even then, it's like, dude, you are a safe guy. And I love that moment with Renee Russo where she's talking to oh god, what's her name? Stripper ex-girlfriend. It's not Denise, is it? Debbie?
I don't remember offhand.
I'm blanking on her name. Oh, Doreen.
Yeah, there it is.
Played by Linda Hart. Where she's like, oh my god, he's doing this again. And Renee's like, go for it. She's like, what are you doing? She's like, I never had a man who went for it. And she's like, well, he's your guy. Like, I love that we got to have this one. It's like, they've only met each other for like 2 days, but they've like, you've already established a friendship through them and stuff. And I love that they had these little side conversations while it's happening. There's so much just greatness in this movie. And I feel like this movie is I feel like, and we said this on the show a lot, people who have watched this movie understand the brilliance of it. But there's so many people who see it's a golfing movie.
Golf movie, yeah.
Oh, it's not Caddyshack or Happy Gilmore? I don't fucking want to watch it.
Caddyshack is not all that good.
I agree.
Happy Gilmore even is like, if you like Adam Sandler, you'll love Happy Gilmore.
Exactly.
It's like, But this one,
I love old school Adam Sandler, so I love Happy Gilmore. But a lot of people don't want to watch golf movies. But this is the best golf movie ever made.
You don't want to watch The Legend of Bagger Vance? The greatest game ever played?
I don't mind the greatest game ever played with
They're okay, but that's the kind of boring thing. Not boring. That's the kind of more dramatic, low key thing that people expect when they see a golf movie.
But this is
not that.
Fun. This is fun, and the whole part where he gets the shanks, and that's even once again a part of this movie that I also loved is that Romeo is his guy. That's his go-to guy. And yes, does he treat Romeo like shit? Yes. Does Roy act like he knows everything? Yes, because he's an egotistical asshole. But when he starts to do that, you see fear. And I love that when he gets like, Rome. And he I love that he didn't just go, well, no, he was like, I'm scared. Romeo, help me. And I love that moment because it shows that he does actually value Romeo's input and Romeo's friendship because he got scared, rightfully so.
The other part of that shank section that I liked was the moment when she walks into his trailer and he's got on all that golf paraphernalia, and it looks like somebody just walked in and caught him doing some sexual deviant act. He's like, oh, no, what?
Exactly, but to him that is the lowest of the low, is that you could catch him doing that, and but I said there's just so much greatness here, and then also just the when he has to win his golf clubs back, and so he starts to play with the base. He pulls of course Costner has to have a baseball bat in this movie. If he doesn't get to have a baseball swing, but he gets that and the shuffle
and a hoe. It's like that and the final thing are the two things I remember most about this movie.
Yeah, I love this movie so much, and it's peak Costner at his best. Yes, we've got Robin Hood and we've got Bull Durham and Field of Dreams, all that. But Tin Cup Kevin Costner is probably my favorite Kevin Costner. It's my favorite Cheech. It's my favorite Renee Russo because she's having a blast. Outside of this, the only other thing I really love her in is probably in Lethal Weapon because she plays beautifully against Mel Gibson. And she's also good in Thomas Crown Affair that you made me watch a year or two ago. But I love her in this because once again, her character, she seems like she has all the answers, but then she breaks down in the Winnebago that she doesn't know what the fuck she's doing either. And she's just trying to skate by. Everyone has their inner demons. And some of them can rise above it, and others get drowned by it in case of Roy. Unless you're David Sims, he's fine living his life. And even at the end, he doesn't care that he loses Renee Russo at the end. He's just like, y'all fucking nuts. oh hey, hello new blonde. And, it's just, David is just gonna keep being David because it works for him. In his eyes, he's a winner. And at the end of the day, yeah, he was. I mean, he didn't win the tournament, but he's winning life because no one gives a shit about his being mean to old people, kids, and dogs. But it's just because that's the one thing in the movie. It's like they drop that throughout the film, and they throw that in because you have to give Rene Russo a reason to leave him because he really hasn't done anything to her to make her want to leave him. It's to show him that they were right about him all along.
It just pays off in that one moment where he just says, "Is just mean to some old person." He goes, "The dog's ugly too."
Throw that in. And it's just like it's such a tacked on moment, but we want Rene Russo with Roy and them that we allow it to happen. But it's such a tacked on thing, and I love once again back to the shot. We are teased about this shot through all 3 rounds prior. He keeps doing it. He keeps doing it. He keeps doing it. He's gonna get smart about it. He's gonna get smart. He's gonna get smart about it, or he's gonna go for it. And he's gonna get it right away, and it doesn't. And that's what's great about it too is that he never learned.
And I love the tease too, where he makes it and they're cheering, and then all of a sudden just starts rolling back, and you're like, no.
What I also love about this movie is that it's got some of the most memorable oh god, what are they called? Generic people in the shots. Extras.
Yeah.
Like you got the woman who constantly yells shit. Like because they audio track her shit like every time he fucks up. And then there's the dude when they all jump into the lake to grab the ball, which is there's like hundreds of balls in there.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're not gonna know which ball it is. Or are they going after the club?
Like unless he signed it and threw it in there, which he didn't. But you got that one dude who like the guy gets it, he tries to grab it, and he doesn't. And he just turns around and goes like this. Like I always remember that guy. Like that is a guy that I always remember as an extra in these movies. I said there's so much greatness of this movie. Like and this movie just makes me. It's like The Replacements. Granted, Tin Cup is a way better movie than The Replacements, but it's one of those movies, much like Superbad and Scott Pilgrim, since we already mentioned it multiple times on the show. I can put this movie in no matter how I'm feeling, good mood, bad mood. I need to pick me up. I just need to smile. This movie, as well as Superbad, will always put me in a good mood. This is why we do shows like this, is to talk about movies that we love that make us feel good. Granted, there are certain weeks that we don't get that luxury because there's just not a good week of movies for us to pick. We just pick something just to pick something. But this week, and for me, last week with Replacements, are movies that I can actually talk about fondly and just utterly in love with these movies because I've watched these more times than I can count.
Especially this one for me is one of those movies that, not so much now in the streaming area where we just watch whatever you want on demand, but when it used to be you'd sit down and just start flipping channels to see what's on TV. Anytime this is on, I'm going to stop and watch it. Well, I don't care where it is in the movie. I'm going to stop and watch.
Yeah, that or you're like, I want to watch a movie tonight, and you sit in front of which Brian and I know, we sit in front of our massive, DVD collection, and we're just sitting there, we're just looking through all the titles, and it's like, maybe that one, Tin Cup. Man, I've watched it like 8 times in the last year. Maybe I should watch something else. And you look, but your eyes just keep going back to Tin Cup. It's like. Fucking Tin Cup. Like that's what these kind of movies are like. And if you guys have never seen Tin Cup, I don't care that it's a fucking golf movie. You're going to love this film. And if you're a big Kevin Costner, anyone who's a fan of Yellowstone, who obviously is a Kevin Costner fan if you watch Yellowstone, and you guys have never seen Tin Cup, you need to go out of your way to watch Tin Cup. Because if you watch Yellowstone, you'll love Tin Cup. So go out of your way to watch Tin Cup. I don't believe this is on any streaming services, though.
This is not anything right now either.
Yeah. But
it's worth checking out, though.
It's what, a $2 rental on Amazon or some shit like that.
I do want to say, too, that for me, this is a surprisingly quotable movie. Because there's 2 things in this movie that I quote all the time that nobody ever knows I'm talking about. One of them is when the defining moment arises, you define the moment or the moment defines you.
Yes.
I've always liked that quote.
Or
the other one, which I tend to throw in
Palmer thing.
Yeah. The other one that I throw into conversations, all the time, people are like, what the hell are you talking about? Is when he takes a chance, it doesn't work out, and he goes, You ride her till she bucks you, or you don't ride at all. And like whenever I'm taking a chance on something, like or I keep pushing my luck, I always use that line. And people are like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
Even though it doesn't work in context, but I've used this when I'm like at work when I'm trying to train something new to somebody. I was like, yeah, I go just follow the procedure, do all this. I go, all else fails, just do the other thing. What's the other thing? Grip it and rip it. And they're like, what? I go, just fucking go for it. It's just like I don't know how many times I've actually done that riddle to people to see if they pick up on it. the doctor riddle. And I also love that Romeo doesn't ever call her by her name. She's also the doctor lady. Like
Doctor Lady.
The doctor lady. Yeah, Tin Cup is a fantastic film. Like I said, hands down, one of my favorite sports movies. Eventually, at some point, Brian is gonna have to do just a sports show where we just like talk about our favorite sports films. Granted, Tin Cup and for me the replacements we've already talked about, but we both like sports, me more so, but we like sports movies. We probably should take some time to actually acknowledge those sports movies a lot more often.
Well, I have no problem with a sports show, especially since I think that a lot of my picks, my favorites, are ones that other people might like, but most people don't like love as much as I do. It's like I have some little strange picks.
Yeah, it's like me with Play It to the Bone. A lot of people have never even heard of that fucking film, but it's like, dude, no, Play It to the Bone is like it's not a perfect film, but it's such a great boxing movie. Where it's like you have your people like who love Warrior, which rightfully so. Warrior is a phenomenal film, but there's movies like this where it's like you guys never seen Tin Cup?
Like this, or Mystery Alaska is another one, kind of the
Mystery
same.
Alaska, yes, we talked about that on Weekend Crusaders. It's probably my favorite hockey movie. It's like I said, for me, baseball movie, Mr. Baseball, which you had never seen until I was like it. I like it. I really really enjoyed it. I watched it all the time when I was a kid. Probably not as much, love it as much as anymore, but it was another one of those. It's like it's an offshoot baseball movie that probably not a lot of people have seen, but if you're a fan of Tom Selleck, you probably have seen it. But anyway, we hope you enjoyed our episode. If you guys did, go ahead, that like, share, and subscribe button to the channel so you guys stay up to date with all the latest videos pop up on the Movie Crusaders. And of course, you have to follow us on all the social media outlets you see below. Coming up next, we'll have the next episode of the Weekly Crusaders, where, well, we're definitely not going to be hitting movies that I love, but I do enjoy one of them, and it'll be a first-time watch for another one for me. Mine is a movie that if you had told me, hey, Sean, you're going to talk about this on a show fondly in like 20 years, I've been like, fuck you, no, I won't. But I will. It's another sports movie, technically, because people do consider this a sport. Brian's movie, I know of it. I've never seen it, but I know it's a comedy.
It's kind of a comedy. I guess I'd describe it as a cult classic, based on an actual classic story. But it's one that I'm pretty sure Sean's gonna either think is really funny or just be bored out of his mind.
Yes, we will talk about that next week. And then movies come out this week. We've got Strays, which Brian watched, and your thoughts on Strays?
It's not great. It's not terrible. It's like I said, I compare it to Sausage Party, which was it's a one joke movie whose one joke gets old pretty fast, and there's not much more to it.
Yeah, I may or may not get to see that this week, but permitting. I did not get to see Voyage of the Demeter, but Brian did.
Love that movie. I love the atmosphere of it. I think that more people should go see it. It's flopping at the box office. It'll probably be on streaming pretty fast.
Yeah, so I may be checking that one out here sooner than later. And then of course we also got Blue Beetle, which
we're looking to see it. I don't know if we're excited about it.
Yeah, it's like I'm probably more excited for Strays just because the trailer was funny, but I'm not necessarily super excited for it. And Blue Beetle, there's one reason why I'm not excited for Blue Beetle, and that's George Lopez. I cannot stand George Lopez with a fiber of my being. If they had replaced George Lopez with Fluffy, I would be watching it right away because I love Fluffy.
That's a very small step up.
Fluffy's funny to me. George Lopez is not. Hell, I'll take Carlos Mencina before I take George Lopez. But knowing that he's in it a lot more than I thought he was going to be really makes me want to watch Blue Beetle. But those are the movies that are coming out this week. If I do get to see them, we will have a review. If not next week, Brian will have seen them, and Brian will tell me what he thinks of Blue Beetle. Because we already said what he thought of Strays and Voyage of Demeter. But anyway, we will be back next week. Until next time, we are the Movie Crusaders. My name is Sean Walsh, guys, Brian Michaels. And until next time, in case we don't see you, go watch some movies, go have some fun, and go watch Tin Cup.
You're still here. It's over. Go home.